This week on Jared Scott Outdoors, I'm heading out with my son Luke on a bull elk hunt. He was fortunate to get an October controlled elk hunt and had hopes of harvesting a big one. Stay tuned. Welcome to Jared Scott Outdoors, your source in the field for local outdoor news. This week on Jared Scott Outdoors, we're heading out for elk. My son Luke had the tag and had been waiting for this hunt for some time. Just like most hunters, Luke hoped he'd have the chance to take a big mature bull. We knew the area well, but also knew the area had seen a lot of pressure in recent weeks and didn't know if he could really find the right bull to put his tag on. So without waiting any longer, let's get after it. Heading out for our first day of the hunt, Luke and I brought my youngest son Cade along. As you can imagine, he was excited to be part of the hunt. Surprisingly, after getting a few miles in before first light, we spotted a bull on the ridge above us as we were getting geared up.
First day of the hunt for Luke, and just getting gear on, our warm gear. We're in about 3 miles now. We've got Cade here. He's toughing it out with us, and we've already glassed up a bull up on a far knob up here. We'll maybe get a better look and see how big it is, but that's a good start to the day. Just a couple minutes into it, and we got a bull.
Getting the spotting scope on the bull, we found that it was just a young 5-point. However, as we watched, more antlers started appearing on the horizon as another bull fed its way over the knob. Getting a good look at it, it was also a 5-point bull. Not the size we were after just yet, but still cool to see. We were surprised when yet another bull appeared, but again, it was another 5-point bull. That was 3 bulls in just a matter of minutes as we started this hunt. Not a bad way to start the day. Would you believe it, as we watched, one more set of antlers appeared, and this one was a 6-point. Right off the bat, we could tell the bull had more width, but was it a mature bull? It didn't take long to realize that while this was a 6-point bull, it was the same age as the other 5 points we were looking at. Just 4 young bulls. Of course, at this point we kept watching for more elk, but no, it looked like that was it. But again, 4 bulls with just the first few minutes of the day, not a bad way to start out the hunt.
Well, we stopped at a glass for a bit and we found a bull right off, and then 3 more came over the ridge, and most of them were 5s and then 1 6-point, but a little 6-point. So we decided to keep moving on, and if we don't see anything else, we'll come back to here and try to find those ones again.
We headed further on up the trail and gained a bit more elevation as we went to an area that held elk in the past. By the time we got to a good point to glass from, it was past the morning feeding hours, but we were still able to spot a bull bedded up on the hillside across from us. In fact, there was another bull bedded up you can see on the right side of the screen as well. Initially, the bigger bull looked like it was a possible shooter, as it just seemed to have more mass than the previous ones we'd seen. But in the end, we realized it was just a 5x6 and also a bit on the small side. There was also a smaller third bull that we had spotted briefly a few hundred yards away from these two. So now we'd already seen 7 bulls. This was definitely an amazing start to the day. As we hiked towards a new area, we were walking through a spot that I knew the elk liked to bed in at times. So I had Luke get the gun out just in case we did find some. Because in all likelihood, if we did find some, we would probably jump them, and so we'd have to be ready. Sure enough, we did suddenly walk onto a bull. It was bedded down below us, but it was already looking at us when we saw it. It just took a quick glance to see it was only a raghorn though, and about that time it got up and made tracks. Well, the rest of the day wasn't nearly as productive. In fact, we didn't see any more elk. We even ended that day back on the knob where those first 4 bulls were, but saw no elk in that area either. I was impressed with my 9-year-old Cade though. He just kept plugging along and really enjoyed being able to be part of the fun. As far as the elk goes though, maybe the morning was just a fluke and we'd regret passing up those first bulls. So the next day we headed up to a new area. It was a difficult climb as we had to climb nearly 2,000 feet in elevation in just a few miles. We made it, but we were a little late in the morning by the time we got to the area I wanted to glass from. Sure enough, we got there just in time to see a nice 6-point bull with some cows feed into some trees. A few minutes later, I spotted 3 bulls over a mile away feed into the same group of trees, but a bit further away. However, it didn't take long at all to tell that these 3 bulls were small. In fact, 2 of them were just raghorns, while the biggest of the 3 was a young 5-point. We stayed put, glassing all the open country we could see, and suddenly another nice 6-point fed out. Unfortunately, it didn't stay put. It very quickly fed in the same direction the other 6-point had gone and was back in the trees in no time at all. So now we knew that there were at least 5 bulls and some cows in this pocket of trees that was about a half-mile long by a quarter-mile wide. We just had to figure out a way to hunt the area to try to get a shot at one of those bigger 6-points. Before we could make a game plan, elk started feeding out into the open on the far side of the patch of trees. By the time they were all out there, both the 6-points, all 3 raghorns, and the cows were visible. What surprised us was that there were also several more young bulls in the group. In the end, we counted 10 bulls with only about 4 to 5 cows. Unfortunately, they were way too far away to do anything about it. We just had to keep an eye on them so we could make a game plan depending on what they did.
We've tucked into some thick trees, I think, to bed. We're going to go see if we can get above them and maybe get an angle in to see them. I don't know if we can, but that's kind of our best bet, aside from just waiting all day for them to come out.
So we hiked on over to near where the elk had disappeared into the trees. We tried our best to get an angle in to see the elk, but just couldn't. The trees were too thick. We did see a wolf for a brief second walk just below us, only 30 yards away, but no elk. So trying to play it smart, we just waited the elk out for the afternoon for when they would feed back out of the trees. And that's where we were sorely disappointed, because after waiting for them all afternoon, no elk ever appeared.
Luke and I are back out again. It's been a week since he and I and Kate were out here and we saw those bulls and just couldn't find a big one, and then couldn't get a shot on the big ones we did find. So we are actually in the same area where we saw those 4 raghorns, well, the 4 younger 5-points, and then those 3. And so we're going to give this another try, see if in a week's time something's happened. Maybe some new animals have moved in. So this is kind of it. We've got about 2 days to hunt, and the hunt's over. So we kind of pushed it off to the end, and we'll see if that was a mistake or not.
We had come in during the afternoon and decided to go have a look at that hillside we had seen those bedded up bulls on the week before. I was surprised when right off the bat we spotted a bull up in the same area. However, all we could see was its head. Here you can see what we're looking at. As near as I could tell, the eye guards looked pretty good, like it might be a mature bull. But no matter how hard we looked, we couldn't see more than just what you're seeing.
Well, we found an elk up on the mountain bedded up in the trees. And the trees cover like the top of its head. We can see it just sitting there chewing its cud. So we gotta try and get another angle around the tree and see if it's a nice bull or not.
We moved around a bit and got closer, but still couldn't see much. So instead, we just waited and watched. After what seemed like forever, it finally got up and started giving us a glimpse as to his size, as we'd see flashes of antler through the breaks in the trees. From what I was seeing, it really looked like it might be a possible shooter. Finally, when the bull fed out into an area with a little more visibility, we got our first good look at him. It wasn't a bad bull, but it wasn't as big as we'd thought either. It did have pretty decent mass, with 6 points on one side and 5 on the other.
We got a better angle on that bull, and it looks to be a big 5x5 or almost a 5x6. So we're going to risk it and go try to find another big 6-point. Hopefully we don't regret that decision later.
Shifting on over to a different area, we spotted a few more elk feeding. Getting the scope on them, we found there was 3 more bulls. As we watched, we found that like the other, they were tempting, but still the biggest was just a big 5-point. Not what Luke was ready to shoot just yet. As we got to a point where we could see that knob that had those 4 bulls on it the week before, we spotted elk. They were a long ways off with very little light left, but we did spot several elk. While we couldn't see details, I could tell that the bull that was running around with these cows was a smaller bull. Then a big herd of elk emerged. The light was so low by now that we couldn't make out how big the bull was that was with the near 20 cows, but with so many elk, we guessed the bull might be worth a better look. That's why the next morning found us hiking up that very ridge in the dark. We hoped to be at the edge of the clearing at first light, assuming those elk would still be nearby.
All right, night. We'll see if they're still here today. We're probably about a third of a mile from where they were yesterday at night, so who knows where they're at. We're just going to sneak in and try to catch them before they catch us.
We made sure to keep to the edge of the trees and stay out of sight as much as possible as we slowly worked our way up. Knowing there were about 30 elk here last night as it got dark assured us they were here somewhere, but so far we hadn't seen any. We stuck with it, making it all the way up to the knob the elk had been feeding by, and still nothing at all. We sat down and glassed all the surrounding country for a couple hours, frustrated in this morning that turned out to be a total bust.
We've come all the way up here and we can't find them anywhere.
Finally, I spotted one elk. It was a long ways off, but at least it was an elk. I got the spotting scope on it just in time to see that it was a bull, but too late to see how big it was. I was able to see part of it behind the trees, so I just kept watching so that when it did move, I'd be ready. For whatever reason, it stayed put for about 20 minutes before finally moving again. When we finally got a very quick glimpse of the bull, we were both amazed at its size. This was a true trophy. Here's one more look as it walked by. I'd guess it to be a 340 or bigger class bull elk. Just a giant 6-point.
All we can do is try to go on the ridge past that and try to look back on it, see if we can see it. That's kind of all we got going for us. We're really surprised we didn't see any elk here.
Long story short, we spent several hours trying to find that bull with no luck. It just completely disappeared. So with time running out, we decided to make a very fast and hard hike up to the area we'd seen those 2 6-points the week before. It'd be a hard hike, and we'd barely get there with enough time to hunt the evening, but we figured it to be our best shot at a good bull. After a hard hike, we found that instead of finding elk, we found freezing wind as a storm was coming over the distant hills to us, and not a single elk in sight. At this point, our only option was to hurry as fast as we could to a new area before daylight ran out. So with our backs to the wind, we started hiking out, frustrated at the wasted effort of the day. With little time left in the hunt, Luke was now ready to take one of those big 5-points if we could find them again. As we were heading down the ridgeline, for some reason I glanced behind me and was surprised to see an elk in the trees. A quick glance told me it was a bull. Since Luke was now willing to take even a 5-point, he really didn't hesitate on pulling out the gun to take this bull. With that in mind, you can imagine how nice it was to get a better look at it and realize that it was actually a 6-point. Luke just had to wait for it to feed out past that tree. How is it that they seem to keep trees covering their vitals so often? It moved through that opening too quick. If Luke didn't get a shot soon, he might lose his chance.
Yep. Got him.
Yes! Oh my God.
Holy cow, Luke. You got him? One shot. Holy cow. Oh, can you believe that? Today was a tough day, and we made the decision about an hour and a half ago to forego the place that had all those younger bulls and risk trying to hike far back and get into a spot that might be a bust but had the potential for maybe some bigger bulls. And nothing. We got up here, nothing. And we're actually hiking back. I turn around and look on this treed up hillside and there's an elk. It's in range, it's a bull, and he drilled it. Whew. 6-point. Oh, it's just hard to explain after all this work to get up here feeling like it was a bust and that we left a more positive place, a place that had the potential to get one. Oh, awesome.
Knowing the bull was down and daylight was limited, we headed right on over to it. It's always exciting to get your hands on and see an animal that was just taken, and especially in this case, as we really didn't get a good look at it before Luke shot it.
Looks pretty from here. What do you think?
Awesome. First bull.
What's that?
It's a 6x7. That's a little cheater.
Yeah, pull that up there. Nice extra 7th point right there. That is awesome.
Well, here you go, Luke's elk. You know, it's a fantastic end to this hunt for sure. The way it was going, you know, we'd given up. We saw that really big one earlier in the day, and then the end of the day just was petering into not looking very good. We're actually getting rained on right now, and the wind was blowing. We could see the rain coming, and suddenly there's a bull elk. I mean, it's funny how things just can change, flip of a switch. You know, you can be pretty downhearted. How were you feeling there when we hiked up to the top and there was nothing?
Pretty disappointed that we went all that way for nothing.
It was about a 2,000 foot elevation gain in about 3 miles that we did. And we were hoofing it trying to get there for that evening hunt, and then nothing was out there. And then we came over into this treat up. Well, we were just crossing the ridge and looked back and see this bull. So it's funny how that happens. It happens with a lot of other hunts and fishing trips and, you know, lots of things. When you think things aren't going good, suddenly sometimes something like this happens. But just a cool bull. It's very neatly shaped. It's got the well tail the back, the pretty extra point there on the end. It's not a giant bull, but it's a pretty bull. And tomorrow is the last day of the hunt. And so Luke was ready to go shoot whatever we found. So we're going to go back, try to find those 5 points and shoot one of those. So this is definitely an improvement over where we thought we were going with this. So it worked out really good, and he is a pretty bull. And this is Luke's first bull. So not too shabby for this 16-year-old kid here. So anyways, again, it's about dark. It's getting dark on us. We've got a lot of work to do ahead of us. We're up a long ways out, so we're going to be working into the night for sure. So we're going to turn the camera off and get to work. Tune in next week at the same time for another episode of Jared Scott Outdoors.